Reportedly, Pete Hegseth has the votes he needs to be confirmed as Trump's Secretary of Defense, which means yesterday's confirmation hearing was essentially just going through the motions. But that didn't stop the Democrats from making complete fools of themselves and going after Pete Hegseth for every possible thing they could possibly imagine that had nothing to do with his ability to perform the actual job as Secretary of Defense. So what we're going to see today, of course, is a little reaction and the fallout from all of this. But before we get to these clips, don't forget to like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
Scott, what's your takeaway?
Well, in short, I think Pete Hegseth kicked their asses today. I mean, it wasn't even close. They didn't lay a glove on Hegseth. No mistakes, calm, cool, collected. I mean, before the thing even started, you had this like Code Pink, protester freak show trying to disrupt the hearing. That's the Democratic base, by the way, which probably explains why the Democrats on the committee acted in such a bizarre and unprofessional way. I was appalled at some of the way these senators handle themselves and some of the lines of questioning. I mean, Tim Kaine sounded like a sex pervert in his questioning of Pete Hegseth. Blumenthal, who lied about his service in Vietnam, questioning Hegseth's qualifications. You had Gillibrand, you had Warren, you had Hirono going on unhinged rants about things. Angus King obviously doesn't understand what it's like to fight terrorism. On and on and on. Hegseth was cool in the face of this unhinged questioning. They made him look good today. It would be difficult for a Republican to vote against Hegseth after the Democrats' unseemly mudslinging today.
So Scott, Jennings, the only reason CNN has any ratings whatsoever anymore, makes it perfectly clear that, yes, Pete Hegseth came off the winner. He was calm. He was composed. He was prepared to answer all of the questions, but the left came out with mudslinging. They came out with attacks. They came out with digging into his past of the very things, of course, that they are guilty of. And all of that, of course, just made them seem weak and petty by comparison. But of course, what we really are seeing here is a return to normalcy, a return to common sense, as we're going to see in this exchange between Pete Hegseth and Senator Cotton.
The women have been serving in combat for a long time. Women have even been serving in combat units like infantry battalions for a long time in roles like medics or mechanics or what have you. So what we're talking about here specifically is women in ground combat roles in jobs like infantrymen or artillerymen or special forces. Now, until about 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. Under Secretary Panetta, those roles were opened up to women to serve in. Has President Trump indicated at all that he plans to rescind or alter that guidance?
You're correct to point out, Senator, that these are the decisions that the Commander-in-Chief will have the prerogative to make. He has not indicated to me that he has plans to change whether or not women would have access to these roles. However, I would point out, ensuring that standards are equal and high is of importance to him and great importance to me. Because in those ground combat roles, what is true is that the weight of the ruck on your back doesn't change. The weight of the 155 round that you have to carry doesn't change. The weight of the 240 Bravo machine gun you might have to carry doesn't change. And so whether it's a man or a woman, they have to meet the same high standards. And Senator, in any place where those things have been eroded or in courses, criteria have been changed in order to meet quotas, racial quotas or gender quotas, that is putting a focus on something other than readiness, standards, meritocracy, and lethality. So that's the kind of review I'm talking about, not whether women have access to ground combat roles.
So this is the type of language we actually like to hear. Should women be in combat roles? Only if they can meet the high standards that are set because of the physical requirements of the job. Now, me personally, I don't think women should be in combat roles whatsoever, because if women are out there fighting on the front lines, that means your country is in dire straits. That means we're being invaded, we're being overrun, and we're standing on our last legs. Now, even though this sounds very reasonable, it's a little bit of a change in tune from what Hegseth said just a few months ago.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated.
The Pentagon likes to say our diversity is our strength. What a bunch of garbage. In the military, our diversity is not our strength. Our unity is our strength.
So that, of course, is a bit more hard edged than what we just heard. So it seems like Pete Hegseth might be backing off of his original stance a little bit, or he's just trying to make it more palatable for people to understand, right? Because when you break it down, men, of course, are physically stronger. And when they have those higher physical demands, the women just won't be able to keep up. And I was listening to a podcast one time, one of these warfighter guys, I can't remember which one, I wish I could cite it, but he was basically saying that, yes, men have the natural instinct to want to protect women. So when you throw women into platoons with men, it kind of messes with the whole dynamic. It's What happens when they come under fire? What happens when they're actually in combat? It can, of course, cause some major issues, which is another reason why I'm against women in these combat roles. But as I said, Pete Hegseth represents a return to common sense, a return to normalcy.
Pete, I'm actually going to ask you questions because I want to hear your answer. How many genders are there? Tough one.
Senator, there are two genders.
I know that well. I'm a she-he, so I'm on board.
How refreshing is that to hear a simple statement of fact, a statement of truth, something that cannot be denied by science, that can only be denied by the crazy radical left, all right? These are the people who will be back in charge of our government, as it should be. Not delusional Democrats who are all about promoting men in dresses to places of authority. But the line of reasoning from across the aisle, of course, was a bit shrill.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards that they should be there if they can carry, if they can run? I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth. What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want to know, what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing?
Senator, the concerns I have and the concerns that many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult
Let me make a
for everybody
suggestion
involved.
about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion. And I hope you understand that many women serving in the military right now might think that if you can convert so rapidly your long-held and aggressively pursued views in just 32 days, that 32 days after you get confirmed, maybe you'll just reverse those views and go back to the old guy who said straight up, women do not belong in combat. Now, Mr. Hegseth, you have written that after they retire, generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk with you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about because
You can
it's
think
not
about it
one
right
that-
now.
It's not one, my motivation for this job
I understand
has never
that. I
been
just
about
need
what
a
could
yes or no
conceivably
here.
come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be
In
at the
other
Defense Department.
words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the
Oh,
president
I'll
is.
bet you would.
So I'm going to break from the norm here and actually say that Pocahontas had a couple of good points, right? And it all stems from Pete Hegseth actually backing off of his previous position. He was bar none, no women in combat roles. But now it seems like he's changed his tune a little bit, as I mentioned previously. But Elizabeth Warren is worried about the wrong thing. She's worried he's going to flip-flop back. I hope he does, okay? Because as I mentioned, I agree. No women in combat roles. That's a great way to run the military. But of course, where she really sticks it here is in her question of, yes, we don't want our generals going from the military right into these defense contractors. We don't want our generals, our military leaders, going from the military into the industrial military complex, right? That's just going to strengthen that relationship, which of course weakens the American people. So Pete Hegseth had the opportunity to say, yeah, I'm not going to take any of these positions with these defense contractors after I leave in 4 years. However, he did get a pretty good line in there when he said, yeah, I'm not a general, so these rules don't apply to me. So all in all, this confirmation hearing was a complete success for Pete Hegseth. And as Scott Jennings said in the very beginning, he kicked their butts and came off looking professional, composed, and calm, which of course is exactly what we need in our leadership roles, especially with the outgoing Biden administration. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.